Okay, you guys, I just found this awesome South African show on Netflix called Fatal Seduction. And it is so good, you guys, that I have to do a recap. So, this is Fatal Seduction, Season 1, Episode 1, Mr. Wrong. So, the show opens up with Nandi talking about how society wants you to think that sex is a gateway to drugs, and uh, her and Jacob are, having sex, and it shows that, and then it shows that the scene shifts to the house, the backyard, where there's blood in the pool, and it shows a pew pew on the deck, and it shows Nandi being carried away in handcuffs and put into a paddy wagon, and her husband on the stretcher. And then the intro comes on, right? And then it so the show opens up and Nandi walks into the bedroom where her husband is getting a text from his assistant Amara, and they're talking about the miscarriage and everything and what a shame it was. And then Nandi goes into the backyard where the pool is. And then her daughter goes back there and says, "Hey, mom, the miscarriage, don't feel bad about it. Things happen." And then they hug. And now Boyle is walking on the pier. And oh my God, why is Boyle taking pictures of two men kissing? That's weird. But Boyle is a detective. That's the career he picked out in life. And oh my God, wow. Yo, that sucks. He's cheating on his girlfriend with a man, yo. That's crazy. So the scene shifts where it's Nandi is laying in the bed and she is, pleasuring herself. Her husband's phone rings and his assistant Amara, like literally in the middle of the night, texting him. So her friend Brenda pulls up in her car and she's like, "Hey, friend." And Nandi was like, "Hey, friend." And then Nandi was talking to Brenda like, "Oh, I think he's cheating on me with his assistant with the perfect hits." And, Brenda was just was like, "Your husband is a fuckboy," all this stuff. So I'm getting the feeling that Brenda don't like the husband. So they're in like some type of pool on the beach and they're talking about Nandi's husband. And they're saying that they haven't made love in 9 months, how Nandi's husband blames her for having the miscarriage, as if a woman could just purposely have a miscarriage. Like, no. And then um, Brenda was like, "Do you love him?" And Nancy, she was saying that, like love, like basically she does love him. And then Brenda turns around and was like, friend, there's somebody that's been five. So they see Jacob walking on the beach because Brenda's house is rear facing the beach. So basically, her backyard is the beach. And she's like, I know you want a fucking Nandy. And Nandy was like, oh no, stop, stop. And uh, so Brenda's like, hello, hello, in their nice African voice. And then she points at Nandy over her head. And then Jacob, he's all smiling, running towards the ocean. So Brenda and Nandy wind up on this party, and Brenda, she just starts dancing all wild and dancing with a random man, and Nandy is texting Leonard. I'm just gonna call him Leo. I trying to do all that. And she's asking him if he was still with Vale, and he just completely ignored her text. Me so with his assistant, and he was like, "Oh, is this house us?" And Nandy looks over to her left, and she sees Jacob, and so he says he lifts his glass to say hi, but Nandy just ignores him and goes back to her phone. And so when she looks to her left again, Jacob is completely gone. Okay, gone. Like he's Batman or something. So this Latino guy, he looks Latino. He walks up to Nandy and was like, oh, you look good for an older woman. And Nandy ignores him. And he was like, oh, you're afraid to talk to a stranger. And Nandy, she's just like, oh, why don't you just leave me alone? Just leave me alone. And Jacob walks behind him and was like, hey, is anything going on here? And then the man was like, okay, toodles, toodaloo. And then Jacob was like, maybe you should leave my friend here alone. And then the man was like, oh yeah. And he walks away. So the shift shifts to where Jacob and Nandy are standing with drinks in their hand talking about what happened to him and how this man shouldn't get away with doing something wrong. And then Brenda walks up and she goes in her native language, no, 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 right? Clapping her hands. And then she just stops and just looks. And then, she's trying to play it off like, aren't you the guy from the beach? Like, we said hi to you. And Jacob was like, guilty. And then Brenda was like, she looked really stunned, like she knew who this guy was. And she was like, have we met before? And Jacob was like, no, I don't think so. And then Brenda was like, okay, let's party. Yay. So Zinhle, Zinhle, but I'm going to call her Zen because it is just way better for me to pronounce. So she calls her uncle Bayo, and ask him when she's going to go to the morgue because she wants to be a forensic pathologist. And he was like, your mom, she's going to be going ballistic. And Zen was like, well, whatever she doesn't know won't hurt her, but he was like, you'll be surprised. Okay, so somewhere at the party, they lost Brenda. So now they go back to Brenda's house, right? And Brenda was like, "Oh, drinks on me," and then she claps the bottles, saying, "Let's drink" in her native language. And she's pouring it all sloppy. Oh God, she's overly drunk at this point. And she just stops because she knows this man. She knows him from her memory. And she goes, "Oh, do you have a brother?" And Jacob's like, "No, I'm the only child." And then she goes in her native language, like, "Who's your father?" And he was like, "Oh, my dad's dead." And Nandy's just like looking at her like, "Hey, say something," And then Brenda was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then her phone starts to ring, and she's like, "Oh, I'm leaving you. Eat them up." And then she goes back upstairs in the house. So Nandy and Jacob, they go on the beach and they go for like a swim. And they're just getting booty butt naked at this point just to go in the water. Girl, so basically, at the end of all that good partying and drinking, Jacob and Nandi just decide to just let it all loose and drop them drawers. So Nandi is dreaming about and she's dreaming about what her husband said as she was bleeding down there because of the miscarriage. And she wakes up in Brenda's house in another room with Jacob, and she just tells Jacob to leave because she's very upset about the dream that she had, remembering what Leo told her. Okay, so now Nandi and Brenda, they're talking in their native language, and Nandi is talking about, "Oh, I cheated on my husband. You influenced me, and this is all your fault." And Brenda's like, "You blame me for something you did because you're a big girl and you can do everything on your own, and you letting this fine ass man leave this house." So Leo rushes back home before Nandi does. And so when Nandi gets there, she's like kind of cold towards Leo. And she was like, "Okay, I'm going to go upstairs and prepare my lectures for tomorrow." And then the scene shifts to Brenda. Brenda's crying. And then her doorbell rings. And she goes and opens the door. And she says, "I thought you'd never come." And a guy, like a tall guy, walks in with a green jacket on. Okay, so Nandi goes outside in the backyard, and Jacob is in the swimming pool, and he says, "Come on in." So she walks in the water, full nightgown, everything on, right? They start kissing, making love, and then Leo and Amada walk in. Leo puts the gun, shoots Jacob in the head, then shoots Nandi. Okay? And Nandi goes, "Oh, oh my goodness." And she wakes up. It was just a dream, but Leo is in the shower, and that green jacket is laying on the counter. And so Nandi goes to class, to her job, and guess who shows up in her class? Jacob. and she is stunned. She cannot believe that Jacob is in her class. And that's it.
Baby,